If you like our video, click the button to subscribe to our channel and get easy access to new content. To see our full suite of ad-free video courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides, visit us at www.teachucomp.com. The Undo command and the History panel are two tools you can use to reverse actions you have made in Photoshop to fix mistakes or undo changes you make that you don't like. The Undo command lets you reverse your previous actions in order. To undo your last action in Photoshop, either press the Control or Command for Macs plus Z keys on your keyboard, or select Edit, Undo from the menu bar. You can continue to execute this command to continue reversing your previous actions in order. To redo an action you have undone, select Edit, Redo from the menu bar, or press Shift plus Control or Command for Macs plus Z on your keyboard. If working with a file you have saved, you can also use the Revert command to remove all edits and revert the image back to its previous saved state. To revert a saved image in Photoshop back to its last saved state, select File, Revert from the menu bar, or press F12 on your keyboard. Photoshop tracks all editing changes you make in an editing session as actions and shows them step by step within the History panel. Each action records the history state of the document at that point. To show or hide the History panel in Photoshop, select Window, History from the menu bar. Your most recent action appears at the bottom of the History panel. The save state from which you started editing the Photoshop document appears as a snapshot at the top of the History panel. To revert a Photoshop document back to its state at a selected step in the editing process, click the name of the action to which to revert in the History panel. Photoshop can also save a selected history state as a snapshot in the History panel within an editing session. All snapshots appear at the top of the History panel. By default, Photoshop shows the Photoshop document's open state as a snapshot at the top of the History panel when you initially open it. To save a selected history state as a snapshot, select the desired Actions History state in the History panel. Then click the Create New Snapshot button, which looks like a camera icon, at the bottom of the History panel. Note that unlike Camera Raw snapshots, History panel snapshots are removed after you close and reopen the Photoshop document. To create a more permanent version of a history state in Photoshop, you can create a new document from a selected state in the History panel. To create a new document from a selected state in the History panel, click to select the desired history state to save. This can be either an action or a snapshot. Then click the Create New Document from Current State button, which has an icon that looks like a piece of paper with a plus on it at the bottom of the History panel. The new document is immediately created in a New Document window in Photoshop. Note that this new document does not contain any of the previous document's history states. However, you can save it if you want to preserve a specific history state of a Photoshop document beyond a single editing session. If you select a previous action's history state in the History panel, note that any actions you stepped back over still appear in the History panel. To permanently delete an action and all following actions in the History panel in Photoshop, right-click the Action to Delete and select the Delete command from the pop-up contextual menu that appears. Then click Yes in the confirmation window to confirm the deletion. If needed, to delete all the actions in the History panel other than any action currently selected, Click the History panel's Options button in its upper right corner, which looks like a button made of three stacked horizontal lines. Then select the Clear History command from its drop down menu. Note that clearing the action history does not delete any snapshots you created in the editing session. If you want to delete a snapshot in the History panel in Photoshop, click it to select it. Then click the Delete Current State button, which looks like a trash can icon at the bottom of the History panel. By default, the History panel stores your last 50 steps. You can change this number to set it up to a maximum of 1,000 steps by selecting Edit, Preferences, Performance from the menu bar to open the Performance tab of the Preferences dialog box. Click the History States dropdown, and then use the slider that appears to set the desired number of steps, or type a number into the adjacent field. Then click the OK button. Keep in mind that the more steps you store in the History panel, the more memory is required by Photoshop. It's also important to note that once you close a Photoshop document on which you were working, all its editing history is cleared. Remember to click the subscribe button to see more of our videos. See our full suite of courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides at www.teachucomp.com.